Hey guys, what's up? I'm here with a review of a psychological fantasy body art horror film from director Gabriel, uh, and please forgive me on this last name. I think it's Bartolos, um, who previously directed the Mondo Bizarro direct-to-video exploitation horror comedy um, Skinned Deep, which was a very interesting movie to put it lightly. Um, this is his new film Saint Bernard, which was completed and it had its premiere at a film festival in 2013, and is only just now getting a wide release um, on home media and streaming for the world to see in 2019, some 6 years after its premiere. This film has to do with a conductor named Bernard, whose sense of reality starts to unravel, and it just kind of starts to roll downhill, and things get very, very fucking weird. That's the best I can do to explain the plot of this movie. For starters, I'm gonna start by talking about the film's strong points. The tone of the film is really great. It has this feverish tone that stays relatively consistent throughout the entire thing. Just when you think you've seen, the most interesting visual in the film, you will see another interesting visual, or, one of those interesting scenes tonally, you'll see a scene that completely blows it out of the water after the fact. The movie often feels kind of like a waking nightmare because it's equally absurd and funny, but also weird and nightmarish. The visuals are also another very strong point of this film. From a visual standpoint, this movie is a damn near masterpiece. It is so beautiful to look at, and there's just so much going on in many of these shots. And the complexity of some of the shots for a payoff that is just this relatively short visual or scene in the film is kind of amazing, and it really shows dedication to the art of filmmaking. I think one of the best examples I can give is a scene where raw chickens with parachutes are thrown out of a plane. Um, they actually did that to film it. Like, that's one of the most weirdly pointless yet beautiful things I've ever seen in a movie. The sets and effects are another thing that are like really, really up there in terms of quality and in terms of what makes this movie interesting. Um, oh god, Ooh. Um, the strongest elements of this guy, Gabe Bartalos, of his first film, Skinned Deep, which came out about 15 years ago. The strongest aspects of that movie were the sets and the effects and the visuals. And pretty much the same thing applies here, except this film is definitely more of an art house piece than Skinned Deep was, because Skinned Deep was very obviously a tongue-in-cheek um, kind of exploitation horror comedy. Not that this film isn't tongue-in-cheek, because it very much is. Another positive is the music in this film. It's very eerie and screechy, very similar to the music in it reminded me, at least, of a film soundtrack I've listened to recently, which was the soundtrack to Last House on Dead End Street. Onto the weaker elements. The pacing isn't the best. It's not bad by any means, but there are a couple slow moments, and based on the trailers for the film, you wouldn't expect these slow moments to show up, but they do. Another thing is the acting. The acting in the film really ranges, but when you take into consideration that this movie kind of defies all logic and reason and is legitimately just fucking insane, you kind of realize that even if the acting is bad, it works with the film's overall tone. Um, the writing is relatively fine, honestly. I almost want to say that there was like that there was like really almost no dialogue. I mean, there was dialogue in the film, definitely, but it's very light on the dialogue, which I thought was kind of interesting. I mean, it's not, It's not like 2001: A Space Odyssey, where the first 40 minutes are dialogue free. It is not like that. But the dialogue is pretty light in the film, especially compared to Skin Deep. Um, on the gore meter from 1 to 10, 1 makes me like Nosferatu, and 10 makes me like Peter Jackson's Brain Dead. Saint Bernard is like a fucking. It's like a 4 or a 5. This movie is pretty gross and violent, and not even in like a traditional sense, because there's tons of surreal scenes involving body horror, kind of like cosmic horror, body horror nonsense that's just going on and happening, and you kind of just accept that that is what's going on with the film. The movie is equal parts The Holy Mountain and Tokyo Gore Police. Very much like the latter, it's this wild, violent, off-the-wall, explicit, completely nonsensical, absurd, tongue-in-cheek, weird, fucked up horror film. But on the other hand, there seems to be something more going on in the film than it just being a film made to be very weird. Although, if that is the case, it's just made to be weird, I have no problem with that at all. But in a way, this movie also feels like it has this large scale to it, like very similar to The Holy Mountain or El Topo, or Fonzo and Liz. Pretty much most Jodorowsky films, where they do involve, a character going on this long, strange journey, and that's very much how this film it feels. It's very much a journey on it, all on its own. The film's one that is kind of hard to criticize because it's so weird and it exists in its own terms. So I would say calling it bad would be doing would undermine the obviously massive effort put into creating this weird work of art. But I would say also that calling it necessarily good would defy all logic as a legitimate critic. But then again, I gave a positive review to Invasion of the Blood Farmers, so I'm giving a positive review to this one, but I'm not going to give a star rating on this film, mainly because I feel like I can't put a number to it. I will say if I did, it'd probably be high. I really enjoyed this film. It's legitimately really great stuff. And so far, out of the movies I've seen that have been released this year, this is my second favorite behind Gaspar Noé's Climax. I'm sure if I would have seen this in a theater, like I did with Climax, this might even beat Climax, but because I watched this in the safety of my own home, the experience would have been cool to see it in a theater, although it's not like it was screening anywhere near me. I don't know what I'm fucking saying anymore. Either way, guys, check this one out if you liked the director's first film, Skin Deep. If you like that one, check this out, because it's very similar. It's definitely, you could tell by watching it, the same director. Also, if you watch it and like it, be sure to pick up the Blu-ray that is available of this film from Severin Films. I I rented this on Amazon Prime and watched it. So I will definitely be picking up that Blu-ray of sometime eventually, because this is one of the most interesting and perplexing films that I've seen so far this year. And we've already had, a Jimmy Screamer Claus film this year. Anyway, guys, I'm rambling at this point, so I'm just gonna, kind of end it here. This is Biscuit Boo Horror Reviews, signing off. Peace.